There is a strange kind of strength that exists in silence, the kind that does not shout, does not defend itself, and does not need to prove anything to anyone. Most people spend their lives reacting to every insult, every disappointment, every careless word spoken by others. They move like puppets, their emotions pulled by invisible strings of approval, ego, and anger. But the Stoics, they learned the opposite path, the art of remaining still while the world around them trembles. Imagine this: you're walking down the street, and someone insults you. Instantly, a spark lights up inside your chest. You can feel the heat, the rise of anger, the rush of words forming in your mouth, words that want to strike back. But then, in that very second, there's a small pause. You stop, you breathe, and you realize that spark only lives because you feed it. If you don't give it oxygen, it dies right there. That's Stoicism in motion, the ability to see your anger before it becomes you. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Those words sound simple, but behind them is a lifetime of training the mind. Because no one can truly harm you unless you allow them to live inside your head. Think about it: if someone insults you and you get angry, who controls your peace in that moment? Not you. You gave your power away. But when you smile and walk away, you take back control. That is not weakness, that's mastery. The Stoics believed that external events are beyond our control. The only thing we ever truly own is our response. The weather, people's opinions, insults, praise, these are all outside the walls of your control. So when you get angry at them, it's like screaming at the wind. It will never obey you. But when you accept that the world will always be unpredictable, that people will be rude, jealous, loud, or cruel, you suddenly stop expecting them to be otherwise. And that's when peace enters. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, wrote every night about his frustrations. He was an emperor, yet he struggled daily with anger. His secret was not perfection, but awareness. He would write, "Today I shall meet people who are meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, and unsocial." He expected them, he knew human nature, and because he knew, he was never surprised. When you expect storms, you don't get angry when it rains. You must train your mind to be like a mountain, silent, unmoved, watching everything from above. The storms may hit, the winds may howl, but the mountain never reacts. It stands, simply observing. And the strange thing is, the moment you stop reacting, the world loses its power over you. That person trying to provoke you loses interest, because they cannot control you anymore. You've become untouchable, not because you fought back, but because you refused to. This calmness doesn't come overnight. It's a slow transformation. Every time someone annoys you, that's an opportunity to train your soul. Every time life throws a situation that shakes your patience, that's your test. The Stoics believed that anger is not caused by others, it's caused by our own unrealistic expectations. You expect people to respect you, to agree with you, to treat you kindly. But the world was never built for your comfort. It was built for your growth. The next time someone bothers you, ask yourself, is this under my control? If it's not, then it doesn't deserve your energy. That simple question will save you from countless unnecessary storms. You will start noticing how many of your reactions are based on illusion, the illusion that you can control what others think, feel, or do. You cannot, but you can control your inner response, your breath, your peace. And when you do, you rise. Above them, in that stillness, you'll find freedom. Not the loud, chaotic freedom of doing whatever you want, but the quiet freedom of not being moved by anything. The kind of freedom that says, you can insult me, ignore me, reject me, but you cannot touch the calm within me. That is the beginning of real strength. As you walk through life, you'll begin to notice something: people are constantly at war with things they cannot control. They argue to win opinions, fight to protect their pride, and spend nights replaying conversations that no longer exist. This is the silent exhaustion of modern life, a mind trapped in reaction. Stoicism teaches the opposite: freedom through stillness. Anger is a momentary madness, as Seneca wrote. It takes over your reason, your breath, and your peace. But like every storm, it eventually fades. The tragedy is not the anger itself, but how many bridges we burn while it lasts. The Stoic path teaches us to see that every angry outburst begins not in the world, but in our expectations of the world. You are not angry because someone offended you, you are angry because you expected them not to. The difference seems small, but it's everything. Every time you feel irritation rise inside you, imagine it as a visitor knocking on your mind's door. You can let it in, or you can smile and keep the door closed. The choice is always yours. The more you practice, the easier it becomes. What once required effort turns into nature. You start responding with calmness naturally, without struggle. That's when you know you're transforming. But here's something deeper. The Stoics didn't avoid anger just to look peaceful. They avoided it because anger blinds you from truth. When you are angry, you see only through the eyes of your ego. You stop seeing what is, and see only what hurts. A calm mind, however, sees clearly. It separates fact from emotion, reality from reaction. And with that clarity comes power. Let's imagine a situation. You are in a meeting, and someone humiliates you publicly. The entire room hears it. The normal response is to defend yourself, to strike back with sharper words. But what if you simply pause, smile gently, and say nothing? To others, it might seem weak. But inside, something powerful is happening. You've broken the chain of reaction. You've refused to become what the other person is trying to make you. And in that moment, you win a battle most people lose every day, the battle over yourself. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." When someone tries to drag you into their chaos, your refusal to react confuses them. They expect you to fight back, to lower yourself to their level. But when you don't, you expose their weakness, and reveal your own control. Every insult is a mirror test. It shows you how much power others still have over your emotions. The one who can make you angry, controls you. But when no one can, you are finally free. Think about that, complete emotional independence. You no longer dance to the tune of other people's moods. You decide your response, every time. The Stoics practiced this daily. They didn't wait for peace to find them, they created it through habit. Every morning, they prepared for challenges. Every night, they reflected on how they handled them. It was a constant conversation with their own mind. Marcus Aurelius would write in his journal not for the world, but for himself. Each word was a reminder to stay grounded, to rise above his emotions. That's how a man who ruled an empire also ruled his own mind. You can start the same way. When something upsets you, don't just move on quickly, reflect. Ask yourself, why did this bother me? You'll discover that most anger comes from pride, not from true injustice. You felt disrespected, ignored, misunderstood, and your ego couldn't accept it. But once you see your ego clearly, it starts losing its power. You realize you don't need everyone to understand you, respect you, or agree with you. You just need to stay aligned with your own principles. And that's where Stoic peace lives, not in the world being perfect, but in you being unshaken by its imperfections. It's about creating an inner fortress that no insult, no disappointment, no betrayal can enter. The world may be on fire, but you remain cool inside. That's not indifference, that's wisdom. Because you finally understand that getting angry at the world is like getting angry at the ocean for having waves. True calmness is not the absence of emotion, it's the mastery of it. You feel everything, but nothing controls you. You still get hurt, but you choose not to become bitterness. You still see injustice, but you act with reason, not rage. You become like a warrior who fights without hatred, and forgives without weakness. That is the essence of Stoicism, the strength to remain still when the world tries to shake you. There comes a point in your growth where you stop asking, why are people like this? And start saying, they are what they are, and that's okay. That quiet acceptance is not weakness, it's maturity. It's the realization that you don't need to fight every shadow that crosses your path. You begin to see that peace isn't something you find, it's something you stop disturbing within yourself. Detachment, in Stoic philosophy, does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. You still love deeply, work passionately, and live fully, but you no longer let the outcomes control your peace. You understand that everything external is fragile, temporary, and beyond your command. People change, plans fail, words hurt, but your response, your inner calm, is yours alone. No one can take that unless you hand it over. Seneca once said, "He who is angry at the things which he cannot help, is foolish." Think about how many of your frustrations come from things you cannot help, the way others think, the pace of the world, the unpredictability of fate. The Stoic approach is simple: stop fighting the uncontrollable. The more you resist what is, the more pain you create. Acceptance is not surrender, it's strategy. When you stop fighting reality, you begin to move with it, not against it. Let's imagine another moment. You've done something kind for someone, helped them, supported them, and yet, they turn their back on you. The sting of betrayal hits hard. Your first instinct is to shut down, to promise yourself never to care again. But pause for a moment. What hurt you wasn't their action, but your expectation of loyalty. The Stoics would tell you to give without attachment, to act with virtue for its own sake, not for reward. When you expect nothing, you cannot be disappointed. And strangely, that's when your kindness becomes pure. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself, when someone does you wrong, it is because they believe it right. People act according to their understanding, their wounds, their ignorance. To hate them is like hating the blind for not seeing. This perspective doesn't justify their behavior, it simply frees you from carrying their burden. You stop taking things personally, because you realize most of what people do has nothing to do with you. They are fighting battles inside you know nothing about. That is the secret, most of the noise around you is not about you. Once you truly understand that, you become untouchable. Words no longer pierce, they pass through. Insults no longer sting, they echo and fade. Because your peace no longer depends on how others treat you, it depends on how you treat yourself. The world becomes calmer, not because it changed, but because you did. In a world full of emotional chaos, detachment becomes your superpower. It doesn't mean you become cold or distant, it means you stay centered while everything else swirls around you. You can still care without being consumed, still feel without falling apart. You can still walk into storms and keep your inner sky clear. That is the kind of peace that nothing external can destroy. But to reach that level, you must practice something most people avoid: solitude. Spend time with yourself, sit quietly, without distractions, and listen to your own mind. You'll see how restless it truly is, always chasing validation, replaying pain, worrying about the future. That restlessness is the source of anger and frustration. When you sit with it long enough, it begins to settle. You start to realize that most of your battles are self-created, the outside world only triggers what already exists within. The Stoics used solitude not to escape the world, but to return to it stronger. When you are alone, you can see clearly which thoughts are yours and which are borrowed from others. You can separate noise from truth. You can decide what deserves your energy and what doesn't. That clarity becomes your armor when you return to the noise of life. Imagine being so steady that no matter what happens, insults, betrayal, failure, your inner peace remains unbroken. That doesn't mean you stop feeling, it means you stop drowning in feelings. You watch them come and go like waves, but you remain the ocean underneath, vast, deep, calm. That's what Stoicism trains you to become. A person who feels everything, yet is controlled by nothing. Detachment gives birth to strength. When you no longer depend on approval, you can speak truth. When you no longer fear rejection, you can love freely. When you no longer resist loss, you can appreciate what you have. You stop living like a slave to circumstance and start living like a master of your own soul. The world will always have noise, anger, and chaos. People will misunderstand you, argue with you, provoke you. But when you learn to stand still, when you learn to see things as they are, not as your ego paints them, you rise above. You stop reacting and start observing. You realize that peace isn't something the world can give or take. It's something that already exists within you, quietly waiting for you to stop disturbing it. One day, you will realize that peace is not something you chase. It's something that appears the moment you stop chasing. The noise fades, the chaos slows down, and suddenly, silence feels heavier than words. This is the moment the Stoics spoke of, the moment when you no longer react to life, but flow with it. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm. The wind is fierce, voices are shouting, people are pushing, and chaos surrounds you. Yet your mind feels like a calm sea. You breathe slowly, observing everything without judgment. You realize that no matter how loud the world gets, it cannot touch the quiet inside you unless you open the door. That's not fantasy, that's mastery. And it comes from years of self-awareness, reflection, and restraint. Stoicism teaches that emotions are natural, but attachment to them is optional. You can feel anger rise inside you, acknowledge it, and still choose not to act on it. That choice is where freedom lies. You stop being a puppet of impulses. You become the master of your reactions, the ruler of your own state of mind. It's not about suppressing feelings, it's about understanding them so deeply that they lose control over you. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayals, wars, loss, and deceit. Yet in his journal, he kept reminding himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Those words are a map to liberation. The world outside is unpredictable. People will lie, insult, ignore, and disappoint you. But none of that can harm you unless you let it enter your inner kingdom. Once you guard that space, no chaos can break you. Anger, at its root, is a loss of perspective. It's the mind narrowing down to a single wound, forgetting everything else that is still beautiful and calm around it. The Stoic way is to widen your view. When someone insults you, step back mentally. Ask yourself, will this matter in a day, a week, a year? Most of the time, it won't. You'll see how small most provocations really are, and how much peace you've been trading for them. Think of life as a stage. Everyone plays their part, some kind, some cruel, some ignorant. You can't control their script, but you can control your performance. The wise actor doesn't argue with the play, he simply plays his role with dignity and calm, no matter what the others do. The Stoics believed that virtue, doing the right thing, thinking clearly, and staying kind, is the only real success in life. Everything else is decoration. When you live this way, anger begins to look childish. You start seeing that the loudest person in the room is often the weakest. True strength doesn't shout, it whispers. It doesn't react, it observes. It doesn't break, it bends, then stands taller than before. You become unbothered not because you don't care, but because you understand. Understanding replaces reaction. Wisdom replaces emotion. Every insult becomes a lesson. Every challenge becomes training. Every difficult person becomes a mirror reflecting parts of you that still need peace. Instead of fighting them, you use them. You thank them silently for showing you where your patience still has limits. And with each encounter, those limits fade. You become softer, yet stronger. Quieter, yet deeper. Detached, yet more compassionate. That's the paradox of Stoicism. You feel more, but suffer less. Over time, you realize that nothing external can truly disturb you, only your interpretation of it can. And since interpretations are within your control, so is your peace. You begin to live like a calm flame, steady, warm, unmoved by the wind. People around you may still try to provoke, to pull you into their storms, but you remain the sky, wide, open, unaffected. And in that quiet strength, life becomes lighter. You start seeing beauty where others see frustration. You start laughing where others would argue. You start walking away not out of weakness, but because your soul has better places to be. You realize that every second spent in anger is a second stolen from your peace, and nothing is worth that price. This is how to never get angry or bothered by anyone, not by changing the world, but by mastering your perception of it. By remembering that peace is your default state, and anger is a visitor. By understanding that the calmest person in the room is always the strongest. And by realizing that the greatest victory is not to conquer others, but to conquer yourself. So the next time someone tries to pull you into conflict, remember, you have a choice. You can step into their fire and burn, or you can remain the calm water that extinguishes it. Choose calm, choose clarity, choose control, because the one who cannot be provoked, cannot be defeated. And in that unshakable stillness, you'll finally understand what true freedom feels like.